So our next priority is that of safer churches. And I'm going to invite Caryn. Where's Caryn? Where is she? There is it, Caryn. I don't know if many of you know Caryn. She is our safeguarding advisor for the Kensington area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another microphone here for a moment. And Caryn, hand one to you. Oh, there we go. There we go. So, and we're just going to do this in a brief sort of interview format, just to talk a little bit about safeguarding. Because, so Caryn, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of safeguarding.
I'll try to give you the short answer or the really, really long one. I grew up as a Christian and went to church, and I think I just naturally always was somebody who was kind of looking around and I grew up in South Africa, which probably is useful to say as well. I'm kind of looking around at just generally society around us, and I went to university and studied social work. Practiced in South Africa for a couple of years, and then came to the UK, and that's really when I landed in child protection, and from there I moved when my children were really little to St Stephen's, Twickenham, where I was actually employed as a safeguarding officer and pastoral care coordinator for a number of years. And so I think that just been a gradual progression that in my life have kind of shifted along to where I am now at the diocese as the Kensington DSO.
Brilliant. And if I can ask you another question, and I didn't prep you for this one, but you come into the Kensington area and you've begun to talk to a number of our churches about safeguarding and sort of maybe taking the temperature as to how we're doing on safeguarding. I'm slightly risky question to ask you this, but how do you think we're doing? When you look at us as a church, as an area in this really important area of safeguarding, would you give us a score on 1 to 10 how we're doing in terms of this area?
Well, I think you're pretty good at pushing safeguarding, actually, or promoting it. Because in talking to my colleagues in the other Episcopal areas, I think we're maybe a little step ahead in some ways. So, go Kensington.
Well done, everybody.
Not that it's a competition, but I think on the whole that we are definitely a lot more aware of safeguarding, and the conversations are happening more and more. And it's not feeling as much like it's always about there's a problem, but actually recognizing that we're here to support as well.
Yeah, brilliant, good. And I guess one of the things I've been thinking about recently is why this is such a priority for us. And I think for me, we talked this morning about the kind of story of decline in our church over the last decades, and I guess part of the story of that decline is our failure in this area. That in the past we have not made the church a safe place to be. And we have had vulnerable people, children coming to us who we have let down as a church. And that spreads a reputation. And that means that there are people who would be very wary of sending their children to church because of its reputation in this area. And it strikes me that it is a really important area, for a number of theological reasons. It seems to me one of our core Christian doctrines is the doctrine of sin. That sin is endemic within the human condition, and that is endemic within the church as well. The church is not immune from the doctrine of sin. There's that text that says, the devil prowls around, like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour, and therefore that constant vigilance about our propensity to get things wrong and to fail people seems to be quite crucial. I think our identity is the body of Christ. That, as I was saying this morning, the church is the body of Christ, and that's more than just a metaphor. That is the presence of Christ within the world, and therefore what we are and what we do reflects upon the reputation of Christ within the world. And if the church is an unsafe place, that tells people that God is an unsafe person to be with. That's one of the reasons why we need to take this with great certainty, because of that. And then again, as we were talking about a bit earlier this morning, that part of our calling is to set up prophetic actions of the kingdom that will one day be. And again, it says, if our churches are unsafe places to be, then our churches cannot give people a taste of that place of great safety which we find in the presence of God. If our destiny is to be in the presence of God himself, which is the safest place that there ever can be, to be in the presence of the God of Jesus Christ. If our churches are unsafe places, they betray the nature of the God that we're serving. So these seem to be some of the reasons why, theologically, I think this may seem a little bit of a, why we're doing safeguarding, growing younger and growing the church. That may seem more exciting. Safeguarding may seem a little bit, less exciting than that, but that's why it is so important. And I guess a question I wanted to ask you, Caryn, was, I guess one of the things I think I've learned during the safeguarding training I've done over the past few years is that I think, if I'm honest, I probably thought in the past of safeguarding as a bit of a tick box exercise. Have I done the courses? Have I got the qualifications? Have I ticked the boxes? Have we got a safeguarding officer? Have we done all that kind of thing? It's a bit of a tick box exercise. And I think one of the things I've been learning is that actually safeguarding is not so much about ticking boxes. It's about establishing a culture, a way of thinking, a way of being together, which is safer as a church. And so I guess my question to you was, what is it that churches can do to encourage that kind of safer culture, do you think?
I'm going to use an example where you and I recently completed our senior safeguarding leadership. And one of the things that we had to talk about a lot in that was the power dynamics and looking at social graces, which is a social work concept, but it looks at sort of a little bit of our unconscious bias and what we bring to a situation. And in that situation, I was new on staff team, placed with the Bishop of Kensington and a number of other archdeacons, all for this training group. And immediately,
terrifying.
I felt that way. But it was really interesting because when we spoke about it, your response was, but you're the expert on safeguarding, not that I am. And you had a different perspective. And I think one of the things that we really need to be careful of and start thinking about is just those conversations around safeguarding, but also what we bring to a situation and how that might influence the situation, that dynamic, that interaction with that person that may be really vulnerable at that point. And having that self-awareness helps. But alongside that, there's a couple of things on a much more practical level that we can also consider. And one, the Diocese Safeguarding Team has invested in a parish dashboard, which is a tool for all churches to sign up to, and it really is a tool that helps with your management of safeguarding processes. So it's not going to really help with the concerns and things like that, but it will help you with knowing what you need to have in place and all those the stuff that's kind of more the paperworky side sometimes, but also it helps with your processes of, say, for recruiting and just having it all in one place where you can see what's happening. So it's a really good tool. It also takes away the need to do the annual safeguarding audits, because if you've used that process effectively, it will do it. The other thing that I really like is if you're going to a PCC meeting, for example, and you want to just see where you are with your safeguarding, you can pull out a report. So there's some really useful things in there for parishes to consider. And then the other thing that we thought would be a good idea is the Hampton Deanery have been doing this for a while, where all their safeguarding officers have formed a network. And they communicate with each other and they offer support to each other. And it's been a really useful group. And what we would like to see is all the areas develop the same network system, where safeguarding officers can be better supported by each other as well.
Brilliant.
And we've got one more
and
thing.
The last one, there on the screen, exactly. Good. Yep.
The last is more of a sort of an oversight group. I kind of remember our exact wording.
Yeah.
It's just oversight group, chaired by the lovely Richard, with myself and a number of you who are hopefully interested in promoting safeguarding and really looking at how we are able to be more effective in supporting all parishes with safeguarding.
Brilliant, Caryn, that's really helpful. And I think what you're saying there about power dynamics is a really important thing. I mean, I think my reflection on, I guess as a bishop, you get involved in some kind of times where safeguarding is broken down in a number of ways. And one of my reflections is that is usually because someone has just not been aware of the power dynamics at play in a particular relationship. You know, as a vicar with a collar, you have a certain power. And you need to be aware of the way that operates in encounters that you have. And power dynamics are complex, but being aware of that, it goes a long way towards helping. And the same is true for youth workers, for curates, for other people within the church as well. So being aware of the power dynamics is crucial. So then we have our 3 invitations. Every parish invited to use the safeguarding dashboard. If you're using that already, do you want to raise a hand? Anyone know this? We've got a few parishes that are already using the safeguarding dashboard. If you're not, then do, again, ask Caryn about it, find out about it, because it's a really useful way of making sure your safeguarding is up to date, giving you reports, as I say, helps to create the audit for you as you go along. Number 2, every deanery to establish a parish safeguarding officers network. Shout out to the Hampton Deanery. Well done for doing it already. But other deaneries, and this is something for area deans to take away, maybe to kind of to enable this, to make sure that parish safeguarding officers are networked and supported, and not just feeling on their own. And then the last one, that what we will be doing is to set up a Being Safer oversight group chaired by Richard with Caryn and 1 or 2 other clergy who've got safeguarding responsibilities as well, to make sure we monitor this. So we keep that kind of vigilance within a church to make sure we really are as safer place as we possibly can be for people who come to us seeking Christ and seeking faith. Okay, we've got another 5 minutes or so for any questions. Caryn is here. If there are any questions you've got about safeguarding, how to kind of to make this a kind of bigger priority within our area, to do it really well, that would be fantastic. So do you want to take this? Tim's got a question at the back.
Caryn, first of all, thank you for all the hard work that you're putting in. I want to say, from having been around in the diocese for quite some time now, it feels from a kind of incumbent's point of view that the safeguarding team is in a really good place at the minute with the work and support you're giving us. Just one question that I'm struggling a little bit with at parish level is the amount of paperwork that we now have to do for volunteers. It seems in the church we have more paperwork than to get into work into one of our local schools, and we had a youth leaders meeting last night, for example, and it was one of the things that was really brought up, that people are finding it quite hard to get it all done, and it's struggling for us to actually get volunteers to not do a huge amount of work over the course of a week. It seems a bit onerous. Is there any way we can reduce it?
I agree with you, it's a lot of paperwork. And unfortunately, that's come down from the national safeguarding team. It's always been that way, but I think what's different is there's now been a much more stronger push that's safer recruiting. So we should have been doing all this paperwork 7 years ago already, but there's just become a stronger push, and it's become more to the forefront now that this is what we have to do. Ideally, I agree with you, I'd like it to be streamlined. I don't know how much say I'm going to have in convincing National that they need to change it. I'll try. I'll give it a go. And it is one of the things that I feel quite passionately about, is actually better supporting safeguarding officers in what they have to do. And part of that is that things like that. Where we can streamline things, let's try and look at streamlining it. But all I can say is that it's going to take time. I'm sure you're aware everything is quite slow to change in the Church of England, so this isn't going to change overnight. But we feel your pain and we know that it's hard. I don't know what else to say to make it easier. All I can say is, do you consider looking at a version of that is more manageable for your church, but still keeping the essence of what's essential in that document?
Thank you. Any more questions on?
Make you run around. All I was going to add to that was that I think we're all too ready to keep reinventing the wheel, I think, locally. And we're not very good at asking one another, how do you do that? And I think this thing of the safeguarding network in Hampton is a good example of churches saying to one another, well, we're all trying to do the same thing. You know, we've all got volunteers in one shape or another. Why are we all trying to write documents, work out how to record them, work out how to do them? Let's talk. Let's share good practice. And when I started talking, actually when I became area dean and started talking more, actually, I mean, to my shame, it took becoming area dean, start talking more to my fellow clergy, but finding out how they did things, sometimes you actually find some quick fixes that help you through. So I think the more we can talk to one another, find good practice, not have to write every document from the start, that would be really good. And I think your role is going to be crucial in terms of helping spread good practice around.
Thank you, Richard. Unless there are any other questions around. Can I say, Caryn, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for all that you do, because it's made such a difference having our own area safeguarding officer, which we've not had before Caryn has come on board, and now every area has their own safeguarding officer. We're grateful that Caryn is ours, and that's been part of a journey of culture change I think we've been on as an area that certainly I've been learning about over the past 7 years while I've been bishop here. So little things like having an item of safeguarding, and every time we have a Kensington area leadership team and we gather the area deans together to make sure we've got an item where we're going to touch on safeguarding to make sure it's part of the culture. And that's what we're kind of aiming at here, not just a tick box, but part of the culture of our parishes, our deaneries, our area, so that we're always aware of the sort of safeguarding dimensions of what we do to make sure we really are a safer church that reflects the safety that we find within the God of Jesus Christ.